Greetings, my name is University Amase and this is the fourth branch. We are bringing to you another very insightful interview. This time it is with Mr. Vidalino Raatior from Chuuk State. Now I will hand over the spotlight to Mr. Vid. Hi Mr. Vid, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Uni. It's great to see you.
Now I would like to ask you if you can give us a little background information about yourself and what you do for a living.
Okay. Well, as you said, my name is Vid, or Vidalino Raatior, commonly known as Vid, formerly known as Vidalino Jones. I think for those of you who I taught back in the 90s at Xavier, I was Vidalino Jones. It's a long story, but my name change has also been part of my own story of discovering our own identity as Micronesians and our indigenous identity. Raatior, just as an aside, I was known as Vidalino Jones. Growing up, I was a Jones. Jones is my grandfather's name is Raatior, who's a traditional chief unknown. His baptismal name was Jonas, and back in the 60s, a Peace Corps volunteer decided that Jonas was better known as Jones, and so on his roster, he changed our name from Raatior to Jonas to Jones. So we grew up on this little island as the Jones kids with no DNA, any Jones DNA. But anyway, in the when I was going to school in Berkeley, I decided to reclaim my native name because it was very important for me to carry Raatior's history within me rather than this Jones name that was really insensitively given to me and my family. So anyway, that's me, Vidalino Raatior. In terms of what I do, as I mentioned, from 9 to 5, I am Assistant Director of International Programs at Santa Clara University, a Jesuit school in Northern California. And from 5 to 9, and on weekends, I participate in some personal initiatives to try to help out things back home. I'm a web designer. I run a home-based web design business to help nonprofits back home. I'm also just a blogger. As an educator, I'd like to give information and provide avenues for information gathering and information sharing. And so that's kind of what I do on the side too. It doesn't pay my bills, but it inspires my heart. So
very nice. I've learned and I've done a little background information on you. About your website, your Chuuk Reform Movement. Can you go more into it about the purpose of that Chuuk Reform Movement website and your role behind it?
Sure. Well, the Chuuk Reform Movement, and as you said, it is a website. It's really nothing but a channel by which I want to build a coalition of really young people who care enough about Chuuk to want to know more, and Chuukese both at home and abroad to share those information. Because I think one of the things that's happening and has happened and that continues to happen in Chuuk is the lack of information, and that lack of information feeds really the ignorance feeds into people not caring enough and not mad enough about the injustices that are happening back in Chuuk to want to do something. I know that as a movement, I call it a movement, but it's really a hope on my part for this to become a movement. It's the work of one Chuukese, but as I continue to network with people, I want to get to know more of those people, Chuukese, who are actually doing hard work back home. And that's what it is. So just this week, I just launched a forum aspect or a component of the site now, really building on what happens in Mike Sem. Mike Sem has the public forum using the same platform, using the same exact software, but this one would be for Chukis, by Chukis, for all things Chukis. And but there are some values that I want to build into that, because there are some things that I disagree with in terms of the strategies and some of the public forums. And so my hope is that this one is really builds the movement into people sharing information and building on each other rather than putting each other down, others down. So that's my hope. And so the True Reform Movement is a website, but it's also it's a hope for building network among Chukis, both at home and overseas.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Very inspiring, very inspiring. I've also learned that about you're also a web designer, as you mentioned. I've learned about the Atawe design. What is that? What's that Atawe design?
Well, Atawe is a Chuki's word, which means to empower others in need, or to help those in need. Atawe, that's what that word is. So Atawe design is really just a home-based initiative or business that I founded to started just really to build websites for schools. It started with Xavier. Xavier's old website was my first build. I also built a couple of websites for youth activism back in. I used to work for the Oakland public school system, and I built their website too. So it was just kind of a realization that I have something to share about this creative side of me, but not so much to make money off it, but to charge businesses here in the States in order to make it affordable for nonprofits back home. So my hope is that as I design paying clients here in the States, they're helping to make it possible for nonprofits and NGOs back home. So my last design right now has just been the newly launched Xavier website. And that, I do that for just out of my time, as just like you guys are doing, the fourth branch on your time, out of your own goodwill. That's what I do too. So that's the design.
Thank you. Now we're done with your background information. Thank you so much for sharing. Before we move on to the questions, I'd like to inform you that these questions are taken from our viewers. These questions are received through emails. They're obtained from the Fourth Branch blog and being handed over to us personally. So are you ready to begin?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first question here. You stated in your website that Xavier inspired you to become an educator. Can you please elaborate on that, please?
Sure. Well, prior to Xavier, let's step back a little bit. I taught at Xavier from 91 to 95, and then returned there, was it 2004 or 5 when you were there?
Yeah.
But it really started back in the 90s when I was sent there to teach. Now you have to kind of know that I'm a Duke High School grad, so I actually didn't go to Xavier. People often thought that I went to Xavier. I didn't have that blessing of going to Xavier. So when I went back to teach as part of my Jesuit training, it was there that I really began to see the disparity between my own high school, Duke High, and the school that when I was going to Duke High, I always thought, what is what is their secret? How do they do it? I could only imagine. I couldn't even imagine, actually, because my view of high school education was so different, as I came to find out when I was at Xavier, when I was teaching at Xavier. I was lucky enough when I was at Chuk High to be part of the Gifted and Talented program, which was about the top 20 or so high school students at Chuk High who were kind of tracked into these special classes. We had some of the better teachers at Chuk High, teachers like Domingo Asor and Ruth Anson and Lynn Siberuk, Cecilia Hartman, and Ridis Heldart, all of those better teachers at Chuk High, and so we all stayed together. So I was lucky enough to be in that program, but that was about 20 plus students. The majority of our classmates, about 90% of the Chuk High School population, were really left up to their own creativity or lack thereof. The worst part of being of going to Chuk High was the fact that teachers really didn't show up to teach. On any given day, we would have one or two teachers absent, and so there were these students who wanted to learn, but teachers weren't showing up. Now, when I went to teach at Xavier, it was there that I began to really see what happened, what is going on in Chuk. There's this wonderful school on the hill, and contrasting it with the rest of the Chuk schools, the public schools. Xavier had all the resources and all the teachers who were there 24/7, compared with teachers who weren't there, who didn't show up to help their kids. So there's this difference between resources. Xavier had the study halls, the benches that actually worked. There's water, there's generators to turn on when the island power went out. There's this close knit between teachers and students, and there's students who want to learn and teachers who wanted to teach. You had transportation to take the girls up. All of these different things that factor into what a good education should be for kids. And there I was, kind of really in the middle of it, doing it, and in my heart really come to understand that there's something wrong with this system. Right there in Chuk, there's this great secret of a school up top of the hill, and then down in the valley there are all of these schools that are struggling, and so basically the disparity is how to really to bridge this gap. I was lucky to